Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you're here with us today. As Teresa said, thank you. My name is Sam Fox. I am a speech language pathologist and an S2C practitioner, and I own Beyond Speech Therapy Center in Monroe Falls. I am very grateful today that I have one of our spellers with me. His name is Charlie Vallada. I have a more thorough introduction that he wrote himself, but I am going to wait a little bit later into the presentation to provide that. But he is the champion of spelling, self-proclaimed, but I concur. So Charlie is going to be hanging out with me throughout this presentation, and he'll be a part of the Q&A at the end. So questions that you would have for a non-speaker or a speller themselves, he is going to be able to weigh in, which is the most important thing. So anyways, I am casual and I'm an open book. So please do not hesitate as I'm going through this information. Some of it you may be familiar with it. Others of you might have an entire paradigm shift as I'm giving the presentation. So please, any questions once we get to that point, we are happy to answer. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share S2C. We're going to talk about how this is a fresh perspective on, and I'm using the biggest air quotes, nonverbal, severely autistic individuals, and we will talk about why I'm using air quotes with that, though they may be labels that have been used with your child or your student or anybody you know for a very long time. Spelling to communicate is an alternative form of communication for individuals that cannot rely on their speech to fully express themselves. That does not mean that they have no speech. A lot of our spellers have what some would consider a good amount of speech. But if you ask them, how was your day? What did you do today? What do you want to be when you're older? What did you think of the movie? Questions like that, they're going to have a really difficult time answering those. And we'll talk a little bit about why. There is a ton of information that comes along with S2C. This really is going to be more of an overview. But as you know, if you decide this is something that you want to pursue, a practitioner is really going to be able to go much more in depth with all of these things. So the key to S2C is that it is working to synchronize the brain to the body. So that takes me into our next slide here about apraxia. So most of our families who come in for S2C have not heard of apraxia. Apraxia, simply put, is a disconnect between the brain and the body. So what we find is that individuals with apraxia know exactly what they want to say, but they do not have the motor control to get their articulators to say what they want it to say. They also exhibit more global apraxia in that they know what they want their body to do, but they cannot get their body to do it. This is a very, very, very different perspective than traditional therapy approaches use when working with individuals who are non-speaking and minimally speaking. And I also have a note on here. Many individuals who exhibit this full body apraxia, this disconnect between the brain and the body that I'm talking about, they do not come to us with a formal diagnosis of apraxia. It has been very misunderstood as a cognitive disorder, a social disorder, a behavioral disorder. And so it has been treated as such, often with very limited progress over many years of therapy. I just want to make a quick note and kind of encourage you all as well to try to switch the language between nonverbal to non-speaking. The reason for this is because nonverbal means without words, and individuals who are non-speaking and minimally speaking, they have many, many, many words in their head. They just do not have a way to express them. So it is inaccurate to say they are without words. I just heard a doorbell, so I think somebody is wanting to join, but I don't see how to let them
Sam,
in. Yes.
I'm gonna let her.
Sorry, I missed out.
Sam, it may be Lisa from Autism Society trying to get in.
Oh, nothing, it usually just pops up though for me to let them in, yes?
Yeah, it should.
Yeah, there's nothing popping up. I heard the doorbell, but there's nothing for me, nobody for me to let in. Maybe it will come up again.
Gotcha.
'Cause I would love to have her.
If you go under the participants tab,
Yes.
like on the bottom,
okay.
does it show her waiting in there?
Nope, it just says invite. So.
Gotcha. Okay, just continue. Thank you.
No problem. No problem at all. Slideshow. Okay. All right. Talk for a moment here about speech versus language. This is one of those foundational concepts in S2C. And it's often confused. So all of our clients who come to us who end up being spellers, meaning they use a letterboard or a keyboard as their primary form of communication, they come to us with a severe to profound receptive and expressive language disorder. We're going to talk later about why that is inaccurate, but speech is 100% motor control of the articulators. The motor cortice of my brain is going down to my articulators and telling them how to move so that I can speak like this. Speakers take this for granted. We don't have to think about it. When we're talking about language, that is going to be 100% cognitive. So you see on this diagram, we have Wernicke's area, which is where we process and understand language. And we also have Broca's area, which is where our thoughts are housed. We can have thoughts in our head without expressing them. Most people can, right? And so the issue is that when we're looking at Wernicke's, how do I prove that I understand something? Well, most of us follow a direction, right? Following a direction requires motor control, the motor cortices to send a signal from the brain to the body and for that signal to be received. With the thoughts, how do we express our thoughts? We have to send a signal from the brain to the mouth to move, or we have to send a signal from the brain to the hands to gesture or to write. All of these things require motor control, a working signal between the brain and the body, which is what many non-speaking and minimally speaking individuals have difficulty with. So I'm going to share an example that should bring that all together. I won't get too neurological on you all. First, apraxia. Apraxia is a breakdown of the praxis process, which is a fancy way of saying the way that we plan and complete our motor actions, the way we get our body to do something. It's a struggle to plan, coordinate, initiate, and stop physical action. It is not damage to the brain. It is not a sign of low intelligence. Those three different areas of the brain that I just showed you, Broca's area and Wernicke's area, are not damaged. The understanding of language is there and the thoughts are there. It's the difficulty with that motor cortices in the middle, sending that signal that's received. It's not a sign of muscle weakness. It is a difficulty with how the neurons are communicating with each other and how the muscles in the body are not receiving the signals that the brain is sending them. So, what does all that mean? Okay. I want you to imagine that I put a piece of tape over your mouth and I have you sit on your hands. And then I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, hey, do you know your alphabet? And you're going to look at me like I'm crazy because of course you know your alphabet. Everybody your age knows their alphabet, right? And I'm going to say, prove it. So when you try to speak, you're not going to be able to. Your articulators are not going to move the way that you want them to. You say, okay, well, I can't speak. Well, I'll use gestures. Also, I'm sending the signal to my body to gesture what I want it to. It's not working. Same with sign language. Sign language is a ton of motor control. I hear a lot of families, oh, well, I tried sign language, but that wasn't successful with my non-speaking or minimally speaking child. Yeah, it requires a ton of purposeful motor control. Writing, a ton of fine motor control. Pointing to pictures. I need, in all of these instances, I need to have a working connection between my brain and my body. When my brain tells my body to move a certain way, it's going to. That's often not the case for individuals with apraxia. So, if all communication requires motor skills, and they have these significant motor challenges, how can we help them to communicate? We need to target the root of the problem, the purposeful motor control. Let's help their brain-body connection. I want to share an aside. The reason that I became an S2C practitioner is because I used the quote unquote traditional speech therapy methods. I looked at therapy through a social developmental model for many years, and I saw very limited progress with my non-speaking and minimally speaking students and clients. So I thought there has to be something missing here. Like, I'm doing everything that I should be doing, but it's limited progress. Targeting it from this perspective it's the reason I have my practice, and it is the reason that my clients have a voice, many of them. So there is an overview here. I believe Teresa's going to send the slides to anybody who wants them, so you will have access to that if you would like to learn more there. Thank you.
Yes, I will.
Okay, so I kind of just touched on this, but how is S2C different? Okay, I have many families who come to me with older teenage, even in their 20s and 30s, or they've been in speech therapy their entire life. They still have difficulty communicating. Well, as a speech therapist, I can tell you a lot of times we're not targeting the root of the problem. It's misunderstood. So it is not an issue of they do not want to. It's not an issue of they don't understand. It's not an issue of they're in their own little worlds. That's what I used to think. I used to think, oh, if I can just build a rapport and bring them in and have a connection. And connection is so important, don't get me wrong, but it's not everything when we are not targeting what needs to be targeted. And so what it is an issue here is that they can't get their body to do what they are telling it to do. So S2C, although it is a form of communication, that's not all that it is. It truly is an entire perspective shift. And I see progress on the letterboards with communication. I also see a ton of progress off the letterboards with independence, autonomy, making choices, being able to be a more active participant in their routines because we're taking this different approach. Okay. I'm not going to talk too much about motor planning at this level, but basically what this graphic is showing here is that this purposeful motor planning, I'm sending that signal from my brain to my body. That's where the breakdown is going to be. And so sometimes I have families who say, well, my child doesn't have a motor disorder. They can climb to the top of a jungle gym and balance on one foot. You know, sometimes the motor skills look quite impressive. But those are not the times when it's either a routine that they've practiced over and over again. What happens when you practice anything over and over again? It becomes automatic. You no longer have to think about it. So it's either routine or it's impulsive or reflexive. They're not telling their body to do it. It's just what their body is doing. So that's just one thing. It might not look like a motor disorder. It truly is just in those instances where I have a lot of intentionality in a task that is not routine. Yes, I have an example I'm going to share later that will help with that too. But I'm going to talk about, okay, let's get into it. What is S2C? What's this look like, right? Letterboard progression. We start with these 3 letterboards that you see on your screen. The reason we do that is because it's larger targets and it's easier to scan. What we see with individuals who have global apraxia, it also affects their eyes. Those are not saved from the apraxia in most cases. They can't get their eyes to scan and move the way that they want them to. So we really have to work on hand-eye coordination. I'm looking at a target, I'm moving my arm and getting to the target. That's a big way that we support that brain-body connection in a way that differs from like other alternative forms of communication. Pictures are PECs, LAMP, a speech generating device. Those all provide options, but they're not teaching the skill of intentionally moving the eyes and having hand-eye coordination to touch those icons. So a lot of times we get very limited communication or unreliable communication. I'm hitting cracker 4 bazillion times when what I really want is a piece of toast. After spellers get consistent on the 3 boards, we move to the 26 board, all those letters. And by the way, it's a stencil. They're poking through with a pencil. And that has to do with the type of feedback that they're getting, why we typically use those stencils. After that, we move to a laminate board. And that usually is kind of prepping the speller for the keyboard. They're using their finger now, the pencil is gone. And then that 4th step here is the Bluetooth keyboard. And there's even another step after this to which the Bluetooth keyboard is propped up on a stand. So in all of these instances, there is a communication and regulation partner called a CRP who is holding the board for them and steadily holding the board. You will see videos, but it has to do with the motor planning. It makes it easier to reach forward. And the regulation piece is really, really big. So we need to have trust with a communication partner. It doesn't work without it. And it's very nuanced, but important. So I could do an entire other presentation about that just on its own. Building independence. Okay. This doesn't look like you come in and I hold a board in front of you and you start spelling thoughts you've had your entire life. I wish it looked like that, but we really have to build the connection between the brain and the body. So to do that, we read age-appropriate lessons, which is something that most kiddos and adults who come into us are not expecting at all to be, because I would speak to them exactly how I'm speaking to you. And I would be reading them something at an age-appropriate level and presuming that they understood it without the immediate proof that they did. because I presume that they do. I've seen it so many times. So I'm reading them a lesson about flamingos, and then I say, hey, what animal are we talking about? And then I might point right to the letter, okay? I might point right to that F, right to that L. And people are like, you're showing them right where to go. Yes, I have to teach them first. I have to teach them these motor skills to be able to eventually get to the point where they can express their thoughts. I have an example to help with this too. But I also have a video coming up, and I want you all to really know this part. You are going to see me prompting a ton in the early videos. It's a progression video, so it will show you spellers at the beginning of the process. What does that look like? Up until the end when the prompts are faded. As with any other therapy goal, yes, there are good visual prompts, auditory prompts that I am using. But I'm not asking them, hey, what are your thoughts and feelings about this? And then showing them where to go. I can't do that. I don't know how they feel. So please rest assured that when you see me moving to a certain letter, it's because I've asked them a very factual question, like what animal are we talking about? And I'm helping them to build those foundational motor skills. Okay, hopefully that'll make sense, guys. All right, here's the video. So this is a 5-minute video. I think it is important to see that progression. There are parts that are slowed down, there are parts that are sped up. You're gonna see that prompting faded over time. When you hear me talking, I don't know if you'll really be able to hear it all, but what I am saying, just so you know, the speller is touching the letter and then I'm calling it after. So they hit A and then I say A and D and you know, whatever, whichever ones I'm hitting X. And so that's all my voice is doing when you're, if you're hearing me kind of whisper, I'm calling that letter after they poke it. Okay. Hopefully we can all hear this. All right, we're gonna spell bat. What's the first letter in bat? B. Good job. Can you guys hear it?
No, I'm not able to hear.
Oh, you're not?
I could, but then it stopped.
Oops. Okay, let's see. Let's try it again. Can you hear the music? 2 more, and we'll be done for today, okay?
Now I can hear it.
And turn your body. Okay. Nice birthday. Turn, and bend those knees. There you go. All right. It says that they were in.
E-R-O. Got it. N-E. That's strong. It's very.
Remember what kind of animal? Okay, let's go. Okay. All right, blueberries, green peppers, and the third group. Oh, okay. You ready? Get your eyes right to it, buddy. Ready? Let's reset. You got it. Get your eyes there. I'm gonna help you, right? Right to it. Right to it. Come on, bud. Here you go. Find it. And support, find it. Find it. And keep going, buddy. Get it. You got it. and, okay, keep going. F, and after F, U, and after U, R, and after R, T, and make sure you're poking through after T, that's good, keep going. H, then, E, then, look, after E, E, and, R, and, good. How can school help me go further? Zach, what is something you want people to know about non-speakers? And 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 H and so much. It's good. Well, life hasn't been easy, however. Yep. However, be able to use my, okay. Right. So if anybody wanted to see, you know, longer videos are not sped up, I'm also happy to share those. I have quite a bit quite a few spellers who have given permission to share that. So I have my contact here coming up, but that's a little bit about kind of the progression and what that looks like. It's for an average, typically it's going to take between 1 to 2 years to fade those prompts and get to that point that we call open, where they're able to fully express their thoughts. And we do so much training with the families so that they know how to support their speller at home as well. That's very important. Okay, let's see if I can get back to where I was. Okay. So, oops. Okay, really quick. I just want to share why we can't just dive into open-ended questions because, well, if they know, you know, why can't we just ask them? I want you to think back to when you first learned to drive a car. If somebody would have tried to have a conversation with you in the driver's seat, you would have crashed the car or you would have not been able to hold a conversation with them. Not because you did not understand what they were saying, not because you didn't know what to say back, because you were so focused on the motor of driving that car for the first time, there's no way. But over time, you have practiced this motor skill over and over. It has become automatic for you. And now you can, I would venture to say, hold a conversation, eat a sandwich, listen to the radio, do all of the things in the car. So that's the same idea with the letterboard. We have to master that balance between the motor of what they're doing and that cognitive aspect of holding that original thought in their head. That's why it takes a lot of practice and time to get there. No family that's been through it is going to tell you it's not worth it, though. I can tell you that. Few things I hear from families of future spellers all the time. My child has an intellectual disability, and I know this because of standardized assessments. My child has a receptive language disorder, evidenced by the fact that they cannot follow any directions that I ask them. My child is in their own little world. They don't play with toys in a typical way. They don't use gestures. They don't respond to their name. My child doesn't know how to spell. My child doesn't listen. They don't do what I ask or participate when prompted. My child has difficulty with a talker. This won't be any different. I hear these all the time. So if any of those resonate for you, I so encourage you to give a different perspective a shot. Okay, ASHA statement. Here's the disclaimer of the evening. ASHA is the American Speech and Language Hearing Association. They are who governs my part of my license, and they are wrong, but I will share that they do have a statement out against RPM, which is basically S2C is a cousin of RPM. And they say that it lacks scientific validity, and that it basically causes prompt dependency. Well, as you can see, the prompting is all faded, just like any other goal, any other therapy goal. There is research I'm going to share on the next slide that does support S2C. I can almost understand their claims in the sense that I do think that we need to be very strictly adhering to ethical and procedural standards when we are working with arguably the most vulnerable population out there. But in this instance, they are ignoring the voices of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of non-speakers who have spoken through spelling and told them what their difficulty is. So if you Google it, you're going to see both sides of things. I Googled it. I almost didn't become a practitioner because of it, to be honest with you. But I thought I'm going to take the course and determine whether I think this is something legitimate for myself. And everything has been, and everything has been more helpful than almost anything I learned in graduate school as it pertains to minimally speaking and non-speaking individuals. Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate you over here. Research, again, Teresa's going to send this out, so I'm not going to harp too much on it. There are 2 recent studies that are supporting this. And the bottom is one of my favorites, 150 peer-reviewed articles from professionals, including SLPs. There are a few that who have really stepped out and tried to advocate for non-speakers. Those are beautiful to read too. All tests require motor control. You're asking them to look at something and then touch it, hand-eye coordination. Sound familiar? It's difficult. So no wonder when we put a picture of a cat and a dog in front of them and we say, which one's the cat? They may or may not be able to get their eyes to the target and their hand to follow through. Doesn't mean they don't understand. A little bit about talker versus spelling. We've kind of touched on that too, so I'm gonna skim past for sake of time. And I want to end this part with the least dangerous assumption. This is very, very important. We always presume competence. I don't have to believe that every speller is a locked-in genius. All I have to believe is that they are capable of learning, and they are. So if we presume that they understand and they don't understand, what damage does that do? If we presume that they don't understand and they do, what damage does that do? Always work under the least dangerous assumption. Non-speaking people non-speaking people and people with disabilities can and want to learn. Not all spellers are autistic. Most of them right now are, but there are many individuals with different types of syndromes, including Down syndrome, labeled with intellectual or global disability, who are doing this. All right. Here's my piece before we do our Q&A. This is just learning more. So again, I have our email on there, info@beyondspeechtherapycenter.com. Please, if your question doesn't get asked tonight, or you want to come in and observe a session, or you want to come see the center, please, I'm more than happy to have you. It's truly just life's mission for me to let as many people know about this as possible. I do have a note there right now. We have some flexibility because of our licenses. So myself and my occupational therapist here are also is also trained in S2C. So we have some flexibility with funding. I don't want funding to stop anybody. So if this is something, please, I have a list of funding opportunities, and we have some upcoming opportunities for free sessions with some of our practitioners who are going to start their training. So please reach out if that is of interest. We're in Monroe Falls here. If you know somebody closer, or you're closer to Cleveland area, Access S2C is in Mayfield Heights. And the only other thing I have on here is the Spellers documentary on YouTube. It's free. If you watch me and you're like, hey, I want to know more about that, watch this. And if you have a speller at your house, please watch it with them. Even if they're not sitting there, glued to the screen, they're hearing it and taking it all in. And I think it's a huge relief to know, okay, somebody gets it. So that's what I would encourage you all to do there. All right. I think that's all I have on that end. I was a little bit over, but I want to,
Perfect, Sam.
yes.
Thank you very much. And I know I had sent you a couple of questions that probably got answered through conversation through your presentation as you went along. But one thing I wanted to ask, which may not have been touched on, what's just the best way to go about starting with S2C? How should a family, or any precursors to getting started, something like that?
No, there really are not any precursors. And this is maybe the hardest thing about S2C is there is a little bit of a leap of faith in the beginning. You don't get immediate proof or validation that your kiddo is understanding everything. But with time, you will see. We're giving them a test before we're showing them how to take the test is really what we're doing a lot of the time. So to get started, you call a practitioner. You definitely want to call somebody who is certified. And that was that link, or that website, i-asc.org, is who is doing the training and would be able to direct you toward a certified practitioner. But no, it's setting up an appointment and going in and getting started, but there's no prerequisite, if you will. Age of 5. Usually we start at the age of 5, I will say. Sometimes because of our therapy backgrounds, we'll start a little bit younger. But no age limit for definitely. I have some in their 30s that have started and been successful.
Perfect. Well,
And
if
I had
anyone else has questions, I was going to say unmute or go ahead and add it to the chat.
I had a question here.
Sure.
So my name is Felinda, and I have a question. So I'm a deaf mother, and I have 2 kids with autism, and they're struggling with understanding or signing. Sometimes it seems like they're distracted. They're not looking at my hands when I'm signing to them. So I'm wondering, this communication with letters looks awesome. But in terms of using sign language, is there anything that could help that situation work better? And because they are both smart and they can talk, but I know they're just not communicating with me in sign language because that's how I communicate. So they're unable to do that with me. So I'm just wondering how this might fit into that.
Yes, that's a great question. So as far as them using sign language as their primary form of communication, like I touched on, it's so much fine motor control of the digits. So if what's going on is motor based, then it's going to be almost as difficult as them speaking. So I really would love to see them with a letterboard. I honestly is what I would say to that, because it works on, this is the motor skill I need for a letterboard. My eye scan and my hand reaches forward. I don't need so much intricate movement of the digits to be able to do that.
Mm. Yeah, they seem to be able to speak pretty well, but it's, their signing isn't clear. So that's the part that I think they are motivated when they hear people speak. They want to respond, but their attention and their eyes don't stay on the signs long enough to be able to communicate. So that's the problem. It's been really challenging, as a deaf mother who have children with autism. It's been a big challenge, and I know that a lot of parents have the similar frustrations, or they feel similar things with their kids. So that's why I was asking.
Yes,
Thank
no,
you for
that's,
explaining
yes.
that, and it's very, yeah, this looks very interesting.
It makes perfect sense. I think that the visual component that you're talking about could very much be that ocular motor apraxia that I'm talking about, where they can't keep their eyes focused on it. And even if they do have speech, I wonder how comprehensive their speech is, are they able to tell
Yeah,
you
they
totally
they're
fine? Okay,
people are
interesting.
able to understand them. They seem to be
Okay,
able to speak well, and
okay, okay,
yeah, I do think sometimes there is that disconnect that you were talking about, where they're just,
okay.
disconnected, but then they'll kind of come back and talk and understand. Like you
Yeah, yeah.
mentioned
Do they
that mind
use
body
just a
distance.
keyboard will they type anything? I don't know how old they are. Will they just type things on a keyboard?
Yeah, they're both good with technology, honestly. They can type and they use YouTube, and I know they listen to videos on YouTube, and I think they do have some typing skills, but most of the time, I'm trying to communicate with them. I'm trying to sign, and I'll have to like speak into or like use my phone and type something and have that speak to them.
Yes,
Sometimes they
sure.
don't want to do that. Sometimes they ignore it. But if a
Okay.
person is talking to them, they seem to be more engaged. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm as patient as I can be. I love them. They're my babies. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you want to email me, I'm happy to, if you are interested in just bringing them in, I think if I can get eyes on them and be able to give you more clarity, I could do that.
sure, yeah, that sounds fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I want them, it's definitely a challenge for them, but I
Yeah.
want them to be able to see. I know they're smart girls. Hmm.
Anybody else have additional questions?
I have Charlie here ready to answer questions, guys. Do you guys have any questions does anybody have a kiddo at home that they're thinking might benefit from this? And if so, you have a guy who's gone through the whole process here.
Can you ask Charlie when he started using spelling to communicate?
Yes, of course. All right, Charlie. Coming over, my love. Um, yeah, I think that would be good. Hopefully you guys can see. Yeah, that's good. All right, Charlie. Let's see. Good. Let's make sure I can see. Okay. All right, Charlie. When did you start using us? I began. I began almost. Right. Yeah. Look. Okay. I began almost 2 years. And Charlie, I began almost 2 years ago. And it probably took much Charlie. Charlie was pretty speedy. I think after about 6 months, he was starting to answer some open-ended questions. His thoughts, his feelings, his opinions, his experiences. But very much, very, very, very underestimated at school. Like I think toddler level curriculum for that guy who wants to. Charlie, can I share what you said you want to do? What your like dream job is? Yes. He wants to be a bionic engineer, and I have no doubt that he will be able to do that. He's brilliant, truly. And he's not an exception. He has a video that he did one time. Thank you, Charlie. He's the best. Saying that he wasn't an exception, because that's what I hear all the time. They watch this, parents watch this, and they're like, yeah, but like, that's not going to be my kid. My kid has an intellectual disability. And then their kid can do that. So
I know Charlie said he started about 2 years ago. For how long do folks come to you to learn spelling, to communicate, or is there kind of a graduation period where they're competent on their own?
yeah. So, like I said, typically to get to that open-ended territory where I'm not asking questions about the text anymore, it's usually 1 to 2 years. I have some spellers it's taken less than a year. I have some that it's taken 3 years. 3 is the longest that it's taken for me so far. But usually those are younger kiddos. It takes a little bit longer because their bodies are more active. But certainly once the parent is open-ended, usually the practitioner gets open with them just because we have more experience, but the parent is not far behind is our goal. So that once the parent gets open with them, okay, you're good. And we can train as many communication partners as the family would like. The more, the better, the more access to communication. But yeah, it kind of depends on the speller's personal goals. A lot of them want to work to getting onto a stand so they can be, Charlie and I are working on that right now, getting him onto a stand to be independent. And some have creative writing goals and they, have a slew of other things. But once the parent is open-ended, if they wanted to discontinue services, you have the skills. It's my job to work myself out of a job. I don't want them to have to rely on me for communication.
I see Lisa asked, how often are sessions, 1 or several times per week?
Typically, we see our spellers 1 time a week for 1 hour. And usually we're training the parents or the caregiver, whoever wants to learn, within a month. And then we ask that they practice multiple times a week. It is that brain body connection. It takes a lot of practice, but usually, 3 to 4 times a week, 15, 20 minutes. It's not a huge ask, but it does require repetition.
Do you have patients who use spelling to communicate in tandem with like an AAC, on an iPad, or do they kind of do one or the other?
So I have some that have AAC devices, and sometimes those are used for quote unquote quick basic wants and needs. They will use them for what they want to eat. They have to go to the bathroom, etc. But this, the letterboard has become the most reliable. I find a lot of kids tend to stim, especially on like the iPad, the iPads. But it depends. I also have some that I'm working with like on the keyboard, but on the iPad. But I will say that's a really big misconception is people think, oh, well, like I can just pull a keyboard up on the iPad and that's the same thing as spelling to communicate. It's really not, because they're not working through that hierarchy. They're not teaching the motor skills. That's not the perspective they're taking. And they're not, sorry, I kind of saw you. If you big on the screen here, it's a little distracting, but they're not working on those motor skills that they need. And then they're also very limited. So you could have thousands of icons on that device and it's not going to be exactly what they want to say. If I can teach them 26 motor plans, you can say anything, anything that you want. So it's a little bit of both. Most will choose. I know Charlie, I have a video on the Facebook page in the last few weeks of Charlie talking about a talker. He said that it was, I'm paraphrasing Charlie, but he said it was simple and that he did not think his communication was simple. So Charlie does not, I will check in with you, but I think based on what I know about you, Charlie, you would say that spelling is your preferred method, but I'll let you comment on that. Spelling. Okay. Spelling slews. Many. Okay. Spelling slews many. Many words that. Okay. Okay. Spelling slews many words that a. Keep going. Okay. Look. Talker D and O and go. Look. Spelling slews many words that a talker does not. I think giving an example there of slews would not be on a talker, probably, Charlie.
I see another question here. If a child has some experience with a keyboard, would you still start with the letterboard?
Yes, it's the hierarchy of S2C. It's working on that, remember that car example I told you all about? It's working on holding that thought in the head with the motor planning. If you don't work at it in a hierarchical way, they might be able to type some things. I can't tell you how many families I'm like, they can type like things into YouTube that they want to watch. But if I ask them, what do they want for dinner? They can't type that out to me, right? That is such a good example. And I think sometimes where people get kind of tripped up is they're like, well, if I put a keyboard in front of them and they can't use it, then clearly they can't use spell. They're not going to be able to spell to communicate. No, Charlie started with the 3 boards. The 3 stencils that you all saw, we started with the 3 stencils, moved to the 26, moved to the laminate, moved to the keyboard. And I promise you, that is why he is able to openly communicate at this point, is because we built the foundation so strong for his motor skills that now he can drive the car and have a conversation. It's a testament to the amount of work that he's done. But yeah, I mean, he had access to a keyboard for many, many years and was not able to, he could type some things, but not openly communicate to nearly the degree that he can now.
Another question, have you had success integrating this into the school setting for your students?
Yes, that's a good question. Just this year, we're very excited about that. Yes, we have Wings of Change in Cuyahoga Falls. We have a student there, and I'm working weekly with his teacher on integrating that letterboard into the classroom and supporting him. And I also have a contract with Wadsworth City Schools, has been amazing. And I work with them. I train the one-on-one for my speller to use the letterboard at school. So both of those have been going very well, and I'm trying to get it into more schools.
The sessions of 3 to 4 days a week, would that be in clinic or at home with a parent?
At home with a parent. Yep. So that 1 time a week for 60 minutes is what we're seeing our spellers for in clinic.
Any other questions from participants here? Either feel free to take yourself off mute or pop them in the chat. Well, if not, just wanted to sincerely thank you, Sam, for doing this presentation for us. This was so helpful and to give us a nice overview of spelling to communicate, which is, I think, new to probably many of us here. So thank you very much for this overview. For all of you on the presentation this evening, it's being recorded. I will work on getting that kind of edited in the coming days, and I will send a recap with slides that Sam shared as well, with the links to the videos that she has. So if there are no further questions, there are many thank yous in the chat. So thank you again, Sam, for doing this presentation for us. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to respond to me tomorrow, and I will take it from there.
And thank you, Charlie. And one more thing. Go ahead, Megan.
Yeah, sure.
Charlie's mom,
Sure.
you wanted to say one thing.
It's safe enough.
Sure.
Protective. It's life-changing for your child and your entire family.
Sam, we can't really hear her.
Sorry, Megan, you have to come into
Yeah,
the light,
sorry.
Megan.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
can't hear you.
As a parent, your family, it's entirely life-changing, not only for your child, but your entire family. Your life will change for the better.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that feedback. That's very encouraging.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate what a good audience you all were. And please, that email, info@beyondspeechtherapycenter.com, or Google us. You'll find us, call me. I'm happy to chat with anybody who has more questions or thinks that this might be a good fit. We'll try it out. It's been very, very successful for all of my clients so far. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you again,
Yeah,
Sam, and hope everybody has a good night.
Yes, you guys too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.